Thomas Silverstein was a notorious inmate known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. He spent over 36 years in solitary confinement for killing 2 inmates and a prison guard. Silverstein was considered one of the most dangerous and violent prisoners in the United States, and his reputation for brutality was cemented by his actions in prison. During his time in solitary confinement, Silverstein rarely had contact with other people and was allowed only limited recreation time. He communicated with the outside world only through letters and had no access to televisions or radios. Despite this extreme isolation, he continued to be a threat, with multiple reports of him assaulting prison staff and inmates. Silverstein's reputation for violence preceded him wherever he was transferred, and he spent time in some of the most secure facilities in the United States. He died in 2019 at the age of 67, having spent most of his adult life in solitary confinement. Silverstein's story is a chilling reminder of the dangers that can lurk within the walls of prisons and the extreme measures that are sometimes necessary to contain them. His notoriety has made him a cautionary tale for those who would commit violent crimes, and his legacy continues to cast a long shadow over the American prison system. Charles Manson was a notorious cult leader who orchestrated one of the most infamous murder sprees in American history. In 1969, Manson and his followers carried out a series of killings that included the brutal murder of actress Sharon Tate and several others in Los Angeles. Manson's motive for the killings was to incite a race war he believed was prophesied in the Beatles' Helter Skelter. Manson's charismatic personality and manipulative tactics allowed him to amass a group of devoted followers who would do anything he asked. He preached a twisted ideology that combined elements of Christianity, Scientology, and his own delusions of grandeur, and he convinced his followers that he was a messianic figure with special insights into the world. After the killings, Manson and his followers were apprehended and put on trial. Manson's bizarre behavior during the trial, including carving a swastika into his forehead, only added to his mystique and the public's fascination with him. Despite being sentenced to life in prison, Manson's influence continued to loom large in popular culture, with many people still fascinated by his story and his role in one of the most horrific crimes in American history. Manson's legacy is a chilling reminder of the power that charismatic leaders can wield over vulnerable people and the potential dangers of unchecked cults. His name continues to be synonymous with evil, and his story remains a cautionary tale for those who would follow in his footsteps. Richard Ramirez, also known as the Night Stalker, was a notorious serial killer and rapist who terrorized Los Angeles in the 1980s. He was known for breaking into homes and brutally attacking and killing his victims, often leaving behind satanic symbols at the crime scenes. Ramirez's crimes were particularly heinous due to the brutality of his attacks and the seemingly random nature of his targets. He was known to enter homes through unlocked doors or windows, and his victims ranged from elderly women to young children. Despite being identified and pursued by law enforcement, Ramirez continued to evade capture, fueling public fear and anxiety. It wasn't until he was finally caught by a group of citizens who recognized him from a police sketch that his reign of terror came to an end. Ramirez's trial was highly publicized, and his bizarre behavior, including flashing a pentagram on his palm during his court appearances, only added to his notoriety. He was ultimately sentenced to death and died in prison in 2013. Ramirez's story is a chilling reminder of the horrors that can be committed by a single individual, and the profound impact that such crimes can have on a community. His name continues to be synonymous with evil, and his legacy serves as a cautionary tale for those who would contemplate such heinous acts. The Shinrikyo cult was a Japanese religious group founded in 1984 that gained notoriety for carrying out a deadly sarin gas attack on the Tokyo subway in 1995. The attack killed 13 people and injured thousands more, and it was just one of many heinous crimes committed by the cult and its members. Under the leadership of Shoko Asahara, the Shinrikyo cult became increasingly radicalized, promoting a mix of Buddhist and Hindu beliefs along with Asahara's own teachings that included ideas of apocalypse and salvation through violence. The cult amassed a large following in Japan and carried out a range of criminal activities, including murders, kidnappings, and chemical weapon research. The Tokyo subway attack was the group's most high-profile crime, and it shocked the world with its brutality and scale. After the attack, the Japanese government cracked down on the group, leading to the arrest and conviction of many cult members, including Asahara himself. The Shinrikyo cult's legacy is a chilling reminder of the dangers of extremism and the potential for violence that can come with religious fanaticism. The group's members were willing to go to extreme lengths to carry out their twisted beliefs, and their actions had a profound impact on Japan and the world as a whole. The Shinrikyo cult remains a cautionary tale for those who would seek to manipulate and exploit vulnerable people in the name of religion or ideology. Robert Stroud, also known as the Birdman of Alcatraz, was a notorious American criminal who spent most of his adult life behind bars. Stroud gained notoriety for his interest in birds and his work as an ornithologist while serving time at Leavenworth Prison. However, before his fascination with birds, Stroud was a violent criminal who killed a man in Alaska in 1909 and was sentenced to death. While awaiting execution, he killed a guard and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Stroud's interest in birds began while he was in solitary confinement, where he began to study and raise canaries. He became a self-taught expert on avian diseases and published several books on the subject. However, his violent tendencies persisted, and he was known to be a difficult inmate who was often involved in altercations with other prisoners and staff. Despite his notoriety, Stroud was eventually transferred to Alcatraz, where he spent the rest of his life in solitary confinement. He died in prison in 1963. Stroud's story is a chilling reminder of the potential for redemption even in the most violent criminals, as well as the potential for rehabilitation through education and intellectual pursuits. However, his story is also a cautionary tale about the dangers of prison life and the toll that prolonged solitary confinement can take on a person's mental health. The Kray twins, Ronald and Reginald Kray, were notorious British gangsters who operated in the East End of London during the 1950s and 1960s. They gained notoriety for their violent crimes, including murder, extortion, and robbery, as well as their connections to high-profile figures in politics and entertainment. The Krays operated a vast criminal empire, controlling nightclubs, bars, and protection rackets in the East End. They were known for their ruthless tactics, including using violence and intimidation to eliminate rivals and maintain their power. Despite their criminal activities, the Krays were also celebrated in some circles as glamorous figures, with connections to celebrities and even members of the royal family. However, their reign of terror eventually came to an end when they were arrested and convicted for murder in 1969. The Krays story is a chilling reminder of the potential for organized crime to thrive in even the most modern and prosperous societies, as well as the corrosive influence of power and fame. Their legacy continues to fascinate and intrigue people to this day, serving as a cautionary tale about the dark side of humanity and the dangers of unchecked ambition. Pedro Alonso Lopez, also known as the Monster of the Andes, was a Colombian serial killer who is believed to have murdered over 300 young girls and women in the 1970s and 1980s in Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador. Lopez was a notorious predator who preyed on young girls, often luring them away from their families with promises of food or money. Once he had them alone, he would rape and murder them, often leaving their bodies in shallow graves or abandoned buildings. Lopez's crimes went largely unnoticed for many years, as he operated in rural areas and targeted victims from marginalized communities who were less likely to be missed or investigated. However, his reign of terror eventually came to an end when he was caught by police in 1980. Lopez's story is a chilling reminder of the potential for human depravity and the dangers of unchecked violence. His crimes had a profound impact on the communities where he operated, and his legacy continues to haunt those who were affected by his actions. The case also highlights the importance of prioritizing the safety and protection of vulnerable communities, particularly women and girls, who are often the targets of violent predators like Lopez. Ted Bundy was an American serial killer who committed a series of heinous crimes in the 1970s. Bundy was known for his good looks and charming demeanor, which he used to lure his victims, many of whom were young women, to their deaths. Bundy's crimes spanned several states and involved a variety of brutal methods, including strangulation, bludgeoning, and sexual assault. He often pretended to be injured or disabled to gain the trust of his victims before attacking them. Bundy's crimes went unnoticed for years, and he was able to evade capture multiple times, even representing himself in court during one trial. However, his luck eventually ran out, and he was caught and sentenced to death in 1979. Bundy's story is a chilling reminder of the potential for evil in even the most seemingly charming and well-adjusted individuals. It also highlights the importance of vigilance and awareness when it comes to personal safety and the dangers of complacency. Bundy's case remains one of the most infamous in American criminal history, and his legacy continues to fascinate and horrify people to this day. Anders Behring Breivik is a Norwegian far-right extremist who committed the worst mass shooting in the country's history, killing 69 people, mostly teenagers, at a youth summer camp on the island of Utøya in 2011. He also detonated a bomb in Oslo earlier that day, killing 8 people. Breivik's actions were fueled by his extreme right-wing ideology and a desire to promote his views through violence. He claimed to be fighting against what he saw as the Islamization of Europe and multiculturalism, and his attacks were carefully planned and executed with military precision. Breivik's trial was highly publicized, and he used it as a platform to promote his ideology and beliefs. He was ultimately found guilty and sentenced to 21 years in prison, the maximum sentence allowed under Norwegian law. Breivik's story is a chilling reminder of the potential for extremist ideologies to fuel violence and destruction. His actions had a profound impact on Norway and the international community, and his legacy continues to raise important questions about the nature of radicalization, the role of hate speech and propaganda, and the dangers of ideological extremism.